About 80% of your painting success is mixing colors. Yes, I just made that number up, but it was after I learned to mix colors that my paintings went from this to this. In this video, you'll watch me mix the main colors for these three objects. I actually made a mistake in one of them, but I will explain how and why that happened. On my palette, I've got titanium white, you need any white, ultramarine blue, and cadmium yellow pale hue. Hue basically means cheap, that's why I chose that instead of traditional cad yellow. Step number 1, identify the color. The first object is teal. It means greenish blue, so blue plus yellow. Easy. Step number 2, remember kindergarten and mix the colors like a 5-year-old. Red and yellow make orange, yellow and blue make green, red and blue make purple. Congrats, you basically know 80% of color theory. In this part of the video, I wanted to show you a color wheel, so I grabbed the book that I bought in a library sale called The Color Book, and funny enough, the color wheel doesn't have colors. It has names, which is even more strange because the book does have color images. Anyway, here's another color wheel. Anyway, and start mixing blue and yellow and then add white to assess the shade. And step 3, see how close the color is to the target color and adjust it. Do you need to lighten it, darken it, cool it down, warm it up, or add one color or the other? Okay, it looks wrong, it's too green, too pale, so I'm adding more blue. It gets bluer, but not greener, so I add more yellow. This is when I realized I made a mistake. I'll explain it at the end, but I decided to grab a different blue, tallow blue. I'll string it first with white to assess if it's the correct shade I need. Now we're talking. Because I don't like to waste paint, I'm mixing the previous concoction of greenish yellow. This is way too pale, but the shade isn't that far, so I'm adding more blue and adding the previous green. Assessing the color, it's quite closer but too dark and a bit more yellow than I need. I lighten it, so now it's a bit too light, and the shade still looks more yellow to me, so more blue. I'm actually happy with the color now. I understand that the light reflection makes it hard to see properly, but as a base color to start painting that object, it's perfect. Now with the yellow thingy. Start with white and yellow as a base. But I notice a greenish tint, so I throw in some of my early greenish mix. Now it's too green, so to fix it, I add more red to go away from the green. So I'm placing a new color to my palette, Pyrrole Red.
Pyrrole.
Honestly, I could have added cadmium red, but again, I'm cheap, so I'm just using the colors I inherited from another artist instead of those I paid for. Red is like salt. You should add a tiny amount to start and then add more if you need. Adding more red pigment also darkens the color, so I'm noticing that I'm not orange enough yet, but I'm already too dark, so I'm adding white to bring the shade up and yellow because adding all these pigments made the yellow pigment less pronounced. Now I can add more red. I'm getting closer, but I still feel like it's a bit too green, so I'm adding more white to afford adding more red. Almost there, but I need to check in a similar lighting. A little bit more red. Now I'm happy. So the last object. It's pretty much pure red, and since it's hard to assess how close it is, I'll just put the Pyrrole Red next to it.
Pyrrole.
I can see the object is a bit darker, so the beginner's instinct would be to add black. But as a rule of thumb, I try to avoid adding black because it not only darkens but grays out the colors and muddies them. It wouldn't matter for this specific case, but it's a good idea to do things the right way from the beginning. I can see that the red object is very chromatic, but also a tiny bit orange, so I'll use blue to darken the color and then yellow to make it more orange. Another thing the yellow does, it neutralizes the violet color. In the color wheel there are opposite colors, like red is opposite to green, violet is opposite to yellow. The truth is, the color wheel is actually not 100% accurate. There is a creator on Instagram who has very good series of videos. If I find his account, I'm gonna link him. But this is still a good starting point. To reduce chroma, you should add the opposite color. So if you want to neutralize the red, basically reduce its chroma, you add green. If you want to neutralize violet, you add yellow. I can see that I overdid it with the blue, so back to more red. The footage was blurry, but I was happy that the shade matched the orangey highlight, probably reflected from my skin. And now I'm gonna explain the mistake I made and why tallow blue was a better choice than ultramarine blue. So straight out of tube, these colors look pretty similar, but as you mix the color with white, you see its true color. Although remember that white, especially titanium white, will still cool down the color a little bit. You can see how much more violet ultramarine blue is. It means that ultramarine has much more red than tallow. That's why it's impossible to achieve the first color with ultramarine. It has too much red, which neutralizes the green, and we need green for that teal color of the first object. Honestly, it just means that you should start by stringing every color you have, basically adding white to see what shade it is. I didn't do it because I'm lazy. In the next video, I'll paint all three objects with the colors I mixed. I know I picked very simple, almost primary colors. It's the best for beginners to start with them. But in a future video, I plan to mix more subtle and complicated colors. So subscribe, you don't want to miss me struggle with that.